He's trying to isolate you, and he's succeeding in isolating you. Through American exceptionalism, or maybe stupidity, or both, he genuinely believes that these other countries are not going to answer back these tariffs in equal measure, if not more. He's creating a trade war between the USA's closest allies, its neighbouring countries. And they're going to answer back with tariffs, but not only that, they're going to cozy up and strengthen their trading bonds with the rest of the world. Because right now, with the stance that he's taking, it really is the rest of the world and then the USA. Because he seems to have a problem with everybody. And that's exactly what is going to happen. We're just going to strengthen our relationships with everybody else. Take China, for example. Did you know that China's economy, only 37% of that economy is based on external trading? They don't need the United States of America, and they'll just strengthen their bonds with everybody else. It's a big, big issue. And when countries are going to trade with the United States of America, the goods that they're importing into the United States, they're just going to make them more expensive so that the tariff is kind of justifiable. They're going to make that price point go up so that the product becomes more expensive so that there's still a profit margin for them in that trade, which is going to drive the prices in the United States of America through the fucking roof. We've seen this before. We've seen this with Brexit and what an absolute fucking car crash that was. And now the UK is getting closer and closer to the EU because we know this is bad. This is bad news. We've been here and it was horrific and it was stupid and it was stupid people that did it. But it was horrific. And so what's going to happen in the US? Well, the prices are going to get really expensive. The timber that gets imported from Canada is going to get really expensive. The crude oil imported from Canada is going to get really, really expensive. The food products going to get really, really expensive. Your house prices, because of the timber, etc., are going to soar. Your grocery prices are going to soar. They're going to go through the roof. And it's very interesting, isn't it, that it's now that he's saying American citizens are going to feel a little bit of pain. There's going to be some pain, because that wasn't ever part of his campaign trail. But it's interesting that now he's saying you're going to feel some pain. You're not going to feel some pain. You're going to feel some poverty. That's what it's going to be. And it's tragic, but it's his doing. And the reason he's doing it, in my personal opinion, is because the worse the situation gets in the US, he knows that he's got MAGA and that cult exactly where he wants them. He thrives, as he said himself, on the uneducated. These are people that couldn't point to these other countries on a map. So when they start to hit a poverty point, do you think they're going to blame him? When they've been raised in American exceptionalism and have thrived under this MAGA cult? No, they're going to blame the other nations, aren't they? And he's going to blame the other nations. And he's going to frame it like these other nations aren't trading with us and they're making all their goods more expensive. And it's their fault. It's their fault. It's Canada's fault. It's Mexico's fault. It's the EU's fault that you're all where you are right now. And in doing so, he's going to isolate you further. Kind of grow that nationalist mindset even stronger within his MAGA followers to a point that other countries are seen as a problem and are seen as aggressors, because that's the narrative that he will control, in exactly the same way that North Korea does, whereby they think that anything outside of their borders is wildly wrong and evil and disgusting. He'll do the same thing. He'll blame the other nations. Even though it was him who started this fire, he will blame the other nations in order to kind of grapple you into this toxic relationship with him and his presidency and with the United States even more. Because when people get to a poverty point, they want someone to blame. When things go horrifically wrong and lives go down the drain, they want someone to blame. And right now in the United Kingdom, because Brexit was such a disaster economically for this country, what are we starting to see? We're starting to see the far right creep up. Why are we starting to see the far right creep up, I wonder? Well, it's because people want someone to blame. And they're not going to blame their governments or the people that they voted for, are they? No, because that means an education. That means having some self-introspection. Those things don't exist within these sorts of people. So who are they going to support? They're going to support the far right. And with Trump isolating you like this, he knows that his MAGA cult are going to suffer. And in their suffering, just like any cult leader, he knows that he can nurture the relationship that he has with them even more. Because it will allow him to justify desperate action against other nations, won't it? because it's these nations that are causing our grocery prices to go through the roof. It's these nations that are making the house prices go through the roof. It's these nations that are making fuel go through the roof. And therefore, we need to take aggressive action against these nations. And the MAGA followers will wave their little Trump flags with their MAGA hats on, and they'll believe it. It's all intentional. It's all very, very, very intentional. Either that, or he's just genuinely that thick that he thinks that the rest of the world's just not going to go, fuck you, and the way that they already are, and strengthen trading relationships with each other and raise their prices when they're importing. The UK doesn't have a trading deficit, and that's one of the reasons that he's like, well, I can't really do anything, and that's why he's taking a soft line. He also is taking a soft line with the UK because he doesn't want the UK cozying up to who? The European Union. Why? Because he wants the UK on his side. Not gonna happen. Just not gonna happen. It's a very, very sad time to see the United States of America get booed in football stadiums and the horrific headlines that are circulating around Europe. It's embarrassing for the USA. It really, really, really is. And as I've said in other videos, I do have huge amounts of empathy for the citizens that didn't vote for this and realise really strongly what is going on. But he is attempting to turn you into a hermit nation. He also wants to strengthen the idea that the USA can rely entirely on itself, and it can't. Nowhere can. Not in the world that we've made and developed. But as everything starts to plummet, he will start to blame those other nations. And he will use that, mark my words, as the fuel for aggressive action across seas, across borders. Because he will make us your villain. Even though it is him that did this, that put these prices on us, and then expected us to just kneel and say, we'll do whatever you want. That's not gonna happen. It's just not gonna happen. And the results of that are gonna be bad for everybody. Don't get me wrong. These are gonna have economic kind of domino effects all across the world. It will affect the economies in other countries. But other countries have other countries. And that's the point that I think he's missing. Other countries have other countries. As I said, China only has 37% of its entire economy based on trade. They don't need the USA. The European Union's probably going to get a hell of a lot fucking stronger because it's just going to start trading with itself. Even more than it already does. That's a continent, baby. Europe's a continent. We can manage. And it's just going to leave the USA in a situation whereby poverty just creeps up. If you think the homelessness is bad now, if you think the grocery store prices are bad now, if you think the fuel is bad now, just wait. I would suggest if you have any MAGA members of your family to take them to the grocery store today, take them to the grocery store tonight, and take them around all the things that they like, and take pictures of the prices. And then when it all goes through the roof, as it will, because low grocery prices was definitely one of the things that Brexit promised. Didn't fucking happen, did it? Show them the pictures and be like, he did this. This was him. Get the news articles. Save the news articles. Do whatever you can to get this messaging through that this is not the fault of the rest of the world.